Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. Before we start, I would like to mention that this is my first English video.
Why do you want to
Before,
invest
I've been
in
making
AMD?
a lot of Chinese videos
I like the
focusing on
multiples,
Chinese
you know,
stocks listed on A-shares exchange. And AMD is an American company and is listed on NASDAQ, so I want to explain it in English. For my Chinese audience, it's something new. And I hope they can learn something from it. For example, learn more about semiconductor industry in America, about AMD, this company. Also, perhaps improve their English while listening to this video. For an American audience, it's the first video they can understand, so don't have to look at the subtitles anymore. I hope my videos can approach a broader audience base and perhaps benefit more people. So let's start. We're going to take a top-down approach when we come to AMD. So first, we need to analyze why we want to invest in the semiconductor industry, since there are so many other industries out there. For my thesis is semiconductor industry is an enabler and also is a driver for tech innovation. Why do I say that? Because in previous generations of semiconductors, there's always a breakthrough in the technology. For example, Intel released a new product, and then it has much greater calculating capacity, more features that allow greater expansion. So the hardware developers like Dell or Lenovo and the software developers like Microsoft, they saw this opportunity and then they built something new. A new service or a new product or new hardware, new laptop based on the semiconductor Intel has released. And then they'll sell it to the customers, the end consumers, who will benefit from this product, from the faster speed or more features is offered. So everything starts with semiconductor breakthrough, and that is especially true in the previous years, in the 2000s, of semiconductor innovation. So now we're entering a stage where the hardware kind of gives way to the software. But we can still see a significant impact of how semiconductors are changing our day-to-day life, and it's a basis of our economy. For example, there are several megatrends that is powered by semiconductors. AI, artificial intelligence. One of my favorite example of this or application of this is the AlphaGo. It's built as a program and it beat the best Go player in the world. So it is a sign that AI is changing our world dramatically in a way that we have never imagined before. And cloud, like Microsoft, like Google, everything is moving on cloud right now. And the cloud is projected to have 20 to 30% CAGR far into the future, like 2025. EV, electric vehicles. Of course, since it's powered by electric, it will need a lot more semiconductor contents. And in the future, there will be more demand for not only the driving part, but the autonomous driving part. The software need powerful chips, more detectors, radar systems, etc. So this will be another mega trend for semiconductor industries. Also robots, like the robots released by Elon Musk. It's a bit far in the future, but still, it's a trend that automation, human labor being replaced by robots. And robots need to be powered by chips because they don't have, biological brain. The semiconductor is their brain. So that just shows how significant or important semiconductor industry is to the future of mankind, to technology innovation. So by enabling or driving this tech innovation, providing all these values to end consumers, the semiconductor industry can benefit from this improvement in efficiency or speed or anything. So the semiconductor industry has a high barrier of entry. For example, in the most competitive part of semiconductor, like the CPU and GPU, there's only a couple companies. You can count it with one hand. Intel, NVIDIA, AMD. Besides that, there are no other significant competitors in the space. That just really shows how high the barrier for entry is, since this is a billion-dollar industry, and there are only 3 companies competing in this space. So this really gives individual companies like AMD a lot of room to grow. And second, there's a very high profit margin, like we described before, since there is so much innovation going on. The potential of semiconductor is unlimited, so they can benefit from this innovation, and there are a very high profit margin. Also, I would like to mention that the semiconductor is very cyclical, as we can see from their most recent cycle. Most of the stocks, like NVIDIA and AMD, has dropped 60 or 70% below from their peak. So that really shows how cyclical this entire industry is, because normally you don't see a tech company dropping 70%. So semiconductor, I would say, is one of the few industries within the tech space that is that cyclical, that has the cyclicality of a commodity industry almost. So what does that give us? It gives us that if you acquire a great business, for example, AMD, at a low multiple at the bottom of this cycle, and you hold it for a long duration of time, for example, 3 to 5 years, until the next cycle peaked, then the profit margin in between can be huge. It can be larger than any other stock purchases. So Warren Buffett recently bought TSM, Taiwan semiconductor manufacturer, for a relatively cheap multiple. Is around 12 to 13. And since he knew the semiconductor industry is going to be a backbone of tech innovation of human society, so people will still need to ask TSM to manufacture their chips for them. So it's growing at a rapid speed, despite the cycle in recent years that is going downward, suppliers cutting their orders, cutting their demands. But still, in the long term, since Warren Buffett is a long-term value investor, in 5 to 10 years, it will grow back to this original, prime days, enjoying a high multiple. Then Warren Buffett can sell, enjoying a very large profit. So another example would be the SOX index, the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index. And it is near the all-time low since the index was initiated, around $6 to $7. And right now it stands around 13 to 14, but it has doubled within a month. So that really shows you how volatile or how much the potential for semiconductor industry could be when there's like a big improvements or the end of the cycle is near in sight. Investors will pile in buying the index, and then it could easily go up like 30 to 100% within a month. So a third example would be how many stocks that has 10x or 20x since IPO. For example, we can list NVIDIA and AMD as the most well-known example. So that really shows there are a lot of opportunities inside the semiconductor space, and it is a solid industry. It is a driver of tech innovation, and it has a lot more opportunities for those who are willing to put a lot of time to researching this industry, because it's cyclical, which means you can acquire a great company at a lower multiple, a great profit margin. So that's why I'm attracted to the semiconductor industry, because I think there are more opportunities there. Go down another level. So why buy logic? For example, the CPU and GPUs. So, let's just consider other possibilities within the semiconductor space. First one being the storage. Well, the storage chips like DRAM, they are the closest one to commodity, because a lot of manufacturers are producing them, and their products are similar, like they're interchangeable basically. So their pricing is a lot like a commodity. When there's huge demand, the price will soar. When there aren't that many demand and the supply just outgrows the demand, the price will drop below to a certain level where the company just basically loses money or go bankrupt. And that is a very harsh process. So that's why the storage companies like Micron has always have a low multiple, like 6 to 9 something, because they lost money when times are bad. And they have a pretty high volatility. So I don't really like investing into this specific sub-industry that has really enlarged or exaggerated all the negative sides of the semiconductor. For example, the cyclicality, the or unpredictable profit margin. For Texas Instruments or Analog, they manufacture a different kind of semiconductor chips. They have smaller exposure to the consumer side, so they mostly sell to the business who manufacture it to a product and sell to consumers. So compared to AMD, where they sell directly to the consumers, they have lower exposure since then they have lower volatility. But they're still impacted by the general economic trends. For example, if there's inflation or recession, people spend less, so the demand for those chips decreases unavoidably. So they're less growth, but they're more like dividend or cash flow centered. So they're great investments for institutional investors who don't really care about the short-term returns. They're more focused about the long-term possibilities and the returns. So yeah, this is an okay choice to retail investors, I would say, especially if you have like a patience, and that's important. The third one being logic, that is what we want to talk about because it is not commoditized as the storage. Each product has different applications. They're not interchangeable necessarily. For example, Intel, they manufacture lower end chips to OEMs, and NVIDIA, they manufacture higher end chips or GPU cards to miners, crypto miners, to business applications. So they're not like interchangeable, and there's different demands for different industries. So they're not the same, and then different companies have different focus, different price range. And second, they have a pretty high volatility. Since most of their business are customer-centered, selling directly to the customer, they can enjoy a high price increase when the demand is high. For example, for NVIDIA's GPU cards, when there's high demand for their mining activities, their card price just basically doubled. Another point for logic makers is they're at the forefront of innovation. For storage or TI, there aren't a lot of like innovation. They are not pouring billions of dollars into innovating research and developments every day. They're more centered about supply chain management, inventory management, and also focus on the price. But for logic chips, it's more about the innovation because customers value your products based on how productive it can be, how your product can enable them to develop a greater program, a faster server, for example. So there are more possibilities. If you can push out a new product that has great capabilities that far outpace your competitors, then you can charge a better premium, and there will be people who are happily going to buy it because no matter how high you charge it, as long as you have the higher price to performance ratio, they're still going to take it. So that really shows how innovation plays a significant role in the logic industry. Also, I would like to mention that since China is the biggest market for semiconductors and they are boosting their local domestic semiconductor manufacturing capabilities. If you study the history of semiconductor industry, how they evolved, we learned that whenever a new country enters the supply chain, they always start from the bottom, which is the storage and the specific parts of chips that's manufactured by TI. So if you believe Chinese domestic chips, they will pose a threat to the semiconductor industry, to the American semiconductor industry, then I just don't want to invest in these two because, so far Wall Street has not priced in the threat yet. It's mostly about the embargo or U.S.-China trade relationship. But if they realize that the Chinese companies, they're catching up to U.S. companies at a rapid pace, then they might be scared because once the Chinese caught up, they'll use their own products at 12 to 13 times the multiple of next year earnings. And that is a very low multiple, especially for AMD, a company that is growing, that is in a very prosperous industry that has high barriers of entry and high profitability, like all the things we talked before. So I think it is a great entry point for AMD. Also, I believe I will have exceed average performance in the future years, potentially 20 to 30% annually, if the cycle bottom and then went up in the next few years. So we can talk about AMD's business segment by segment. The first one being the client segment, which is kind of legacy business because they started out doing CPUs for Intel. So far as I was, observing the trends or the comments from the gaming industry, people seems to be happy about AMD's products, especially after it launched the legendary Ryzen series. It's really like a breakthrough point for AMD after they launched the Ryzen series, and people really liked it. People start buying it, so they have more money or more possibility to invest at other business, which we're going to talk about later. So they are not bankrupt anymore. So this is really an important legacy business for AMD. And so far, they have an upper hand compared to Intel. Their client segment CPU business are more middle to higher price range. And to explain why, I'll say because their business model is different than Intel. Intel is an IDM. They manufacture everything by themselves. But AMD, they partner up with TSMC to manufacture their chips. So AMD just take care of the design part and leaves the manufacturing part to TSMC. So both companies are great and they can focus on an area that they are specialized at. So the end result, the end product, is a much cheaper and more efficient than the Intel that manufacture everything by itself, which can cause higher cost for manufacturing, and also just lower just performance because their focus, their concentration is distracted. For the gaming segment, I'll say they're a major challenger to NVIDIA because they've recently released the new RDNA 3 architecture, and their new product, it is very appealing to the gamer community because it is lower priced and it has a better performance to price ratio, and also has a lot more promising things packed into this GPU. So far, it has great momentum because I think NVIDIA's image of a high-end GPU manufacturer was kind of tarnished after the crypto thing, because they sold too many GPUs to crypto miners. Of course, it's profitable, very profitable, but it kind of alienated the gamers because they cannot afford a $2,000 GPU when their whole budget for building a PC is $1,000. So a lot of people start to look at alternatives, and the only alternative out there so far is AMD. I think they will take a larger market share compared to NVIDIA's, because right now NVIDIA's market share for DGPU is around 80%. So AMD might take 20 to 30% of that market share. Also, I would like to mention that they're customizable. So it's not only the discrete GPUs, but also for the consoles. AMD built all the consoles for Xbox and other gaming consoles. For a data center business, they are really dominating the space. Since their Milan and Genoa launch, they have really taken over the entire industry, basically. And the Intel's Xeon chips, they lagged far behind in AMD's products. And so far, they're like 2 generations behind. So there's a very large gap they need to catch up to. And I don't think it's very likely in the most recent 2 to 3 years. It's even admitted by the Intel CEO. So I'm expecting AMD to further expand on their data center business and taking on more shares on the enterprise, because it's harder to establish those enterprise relationships than with the hyperscalers, which you only need to partner 1 or 2, and then they'll have a huge order flow for you. Enterprise is different. You have to talk to individual companies. And Intel definitely has a stronger appearance in the enterprise space, but I think since AMD has far superior products and their price are cheaper, they can definitely catch up to Intel. And also they can charge a premium on their products, because so far they're the greatest company that offers that greatest product. So as far as consumers are concerned, as long as AMD's price to performance ratio is lower than Intel's, that means they are paying a lower price for better performance. They're happy about it. So that really gives AMD a lot of space to charge more premium on their innovation as a reward for their innovation. Furthermore, I would like to see more the synergies between Pensando acquisition and Xilinx. For Xilinx, it expanded the embedded business by a lot. But I think it's more about the engineer, because previously, before the Ryzen release, AMD is close to bankruptcy. To become a great company within the semiconductor space, they need to expand. They need to hire more engineers to obtain more patterns that cannot be obtained or surpassed, or greatly develop their software capabilities. That's how they can truly become a great international company instead of a company that has just arisen from bankruptcy. So by acquiring Xilinx, they really acquired the possibility or the size. They really expanded or doubled their size and their potential for growth. So I think this is a great acquisition. And for Pensando, it's more industry specific. It's more specific to the data center and AI business. So it allows AMD to offer a front-to-end package. Instead of just offering the CPU hardware, they can offer you the whole solution for your data center. And AMD right now is partnering with VMware to build a new generation of data centers that is more efficient. So yeah, there are more emerging opportunities based on these acquisitions, and I think AMD is headed for more growth opportunities. Last but not least, there's the MI300 theories, the APUs. Since I am not a professional, in the semiconductor space, so I don't really know the potential of it. But so far, I think the synergy is huge. There's the CPU, the GPU, and the Xilinx Pensando acquisition. Also, the software capabilities obtained from the space. So yeah. So in conclusion, I think it is AMD has very high exposure to all the megatrends. For example, the auto and the other products. So it has a solid product roadmap and has great leadership. No one has ever doubted her abilities. and the momentum is strongest among other companies. So I think it has a lot of unexplored potentials, and given its low multiple, it is a good entry point to buy AMD. It is a very solid investment overall. So thank you, and if you have any more advice, you can comment down below. And thank you.